Hi everybody, I'm the Rum, one half of Wine and Rum, and today we're going to talk about transport, public transport in Ireland. I say Ireland, but mostly Dublin because that's where we've actually lived. Now, how did this idea come about? So early this year, me and a couple of friends I invited from back home decided, hey, let's do a Euro trip. And it was done pretty much fully by public transport. Some days here in Ireland, and then the rest in Austria, where we took buses and trains to go and see whatever we wanted to see. And one of my friends, he lives in the US, and his main mode of transportation now is by car. Now, up to 3 hours driving per day to work and wherever else he has to go. And we were just reflected on how different it is to be traveling in these different countries without having to worry probably about parking space or gas. And just if I want to take a nap on a long travel session, I can just close my eyes and not have to worry about keeping my eyes on the road. So that is the basis of today's video, where I will share my experience, the wine and I, of living in Ireland for the past 6 years, taking public transportation only. Now, the first thing we think of when we think of public transportation is buses. And I'll be the first to say I am not too much a fan of buses. I probably think it's some sort of PTSD from growing up. Yeah, Barbados has pretty much a huge kind of bus van system network. And besides when, Dad would drop and pick us up from school, any other place I wanted to go, I had to use the bus. But these buses and vans, don't run on that strict of a schedule. When you go to the bus stop, there isn't a digital signpost that I've got used to now saying, hey, the bus will come in this sort of time, etc. like that. Yeah, you're just standing on the side of the road in the hot sun. If you've been to Barbados, you know what I'm talking about. And just waiting to see if this van or bus will show up and get you where you need to go. Thankfully, over here in Dublin, it's not like that. I've gotten way used to the nice digital signs saying when the bus would arrive, and especially the apps. A lot of things we have the Leap card, we check how much money is on that, and also the Transport for Ireland app that has like actual live updates. So if we're at the bus stop and there isn't a sign, we're usually able to see, when is something actually going to come and show up there. Now, this isn't always perfect because earlier this year we had an experience in Salzburg where I think it was some sort of third party, not exactly the city state run buses, but they would show up on the digital signage of, hey, it will come in 5 minutes. Sometimes it will come in 8. The sign will disappear and then the bus shows up, or it won't show up at all. We were there for a day and this thing happened to us like 3 times. That is not the sort of reliability that you would want from your bus system. And I have to say, thankfully, living here in Ireland, haven't had that. Now, I know we have traveled on other buses. For example, when we do some of our day trips to, Inishbofin, for example, we couldn't get there fully by train from Galway. We had to take the coach buses. So it's kind of those sort of buses that would run, I think, 3-4 times a day. That you'd have to really schedule your travels around there. So I can see definitely for the more countryside how it's a bit more of a challenge. Oh yes, and we also took the bus system as well in, don't worry, the place will come to me, Sligo. Yeah, Sligo. We also took the bus system there to be able to go around. Those didn't run as frequently, but it was definitely more of a wait there than I would have on this route that we are living nearby in Dublin, where the buses would come not as frequently. Now, the second mode of transport you think of would be trains. And I've got to say, I like trains. For modes of transportation, I like trains as much as I like planes. I think I actually like trains more. If I had to be any sort of rail nerd, it would be by trains. Blame me, first being really introduced to trains when we were studying in the UK, coming over here and then in Vienna. I've trains. I like trains. And the thing is that trains, I really like them because you get to sit back, just relax, know where you're going. But the only thing that's a challenge with some of the trains that we've experienced here is when there is a delay. Earlier this year we were coming back from Galway and I think there was some sort of interruption on the track. This, yeah, I know, a bus sitting in traffic is one thing, but there's something just, not exactly nerve-wracking, but a bit unnerving or uncomfortable about you're being stuck in a train, whether it's full of people or not, and it just sits in the track. One location and you're kind of waiting to wonder, hearing what is wrong. There was a delay on the track, so we were sitting there for maybe 20, 30 minutes. Not quite sure. But the thing is that we still were able to get back to Dublin fairly on time. I think I haven't researched it. It was just a thought that I have, that I feel like, just much like planes, trains are traveling at near their max speeds, etc. That there's a form of traffic, there's a speed limit, but it seems like if they really need to get to a place, they might, I don't know if there's some sort of command center where they're like, hey, you get allowance to make up for the time, because when we were trying to go back to Dublin after that thing, that train was speeding through the tracks, man. That was nothing dangerous or anything like that, but you could feel the difference in the speed. It's like it's moving a lot more for purpose than it did in the earlier parts of the journey. But of course, the thing about train networks is how far they go. We happen to live close to the Dart, so we get that a lot to go up and down. But, besides going to Houston and going to other places, the train network is not as extensive. I can't decide to go anywhere just by the train. And of course, there is the problem of, hey, a train that's not filled to the brim, that is cool. But the thing about trains versus buses, you seem to have a hard limit. Trains stuff as many people as you can get into that carriage, especially for the shorter distances, etc. If you're, going on a longer train, everyone may want a seat, so people aren't as crammed. But yeah, that's one of the challenges as well. If you could manage to travel off of peak times, it's great. I think that really changes your experience, much with buses. I think that's going to be a underlying tone here of all about location, the actual network you're on, to really make it whether it's worth or not for your enjoyment, whether this mode of public transportation would be for you. Now, on the topic of exact locations, yes, this is one of the other things that has been a challenge with us taking public transportation. Most of the public transportation here is kind of that hub and spoke kind of model. You've got your hubs, which is usually in Dublin, and so everything has to kind of go through Dublin. So getting into Dublin, fairly easy. I mean, all roads lead to the city, But if you're trying to go anywhere else, that's a bit of a challenge. Naturally, for some places we like to visit in Ireland or would like to see, we've had to kind of create some of these day trips for some of our friends who do have cars, because otherwise it would not be very easy to get there. Usually here where we live, it's Dart, it's close by the seaside or something like that. There's a short walk there from the train station, short for us at least. But when it comes to other places like certain beaches, or especially when we had this holiday to West Cork, though, well, you can get a bus to places, but to really see the sights of beauty, those things are not located right next to a bus station or a train station. There, you got to go a bit more inwards and go on, that's like dirt roads, but smaller roads that wouldn't be that highly commuted. And you're not going to throw a bus there or a train there. So for seeing some of those exact places, we've definitely had to delay those and wait till friends could carry us. Even in our latest, recently we went to Glendalough, and we would have gone there before, but we kind of saw how much of a trek it would be by public transportation. Doable, of course, but we decided let's take a tour bus there instead, which was much, much easier than what we were trying to anticipate. So if we're going to city centre, great. But if you're trying to go to some more far-off locations, especially if you want to see something associated with nature, public transport isn't going to help you as much. Now, if you've gotten to this part of the video, you're thinking, okay, that sounds amazing. You could probably live with public transportation while in Ireland. And yes, but my also part I'm thinking these days is also no as well. We've set up our lifestyle and where we live to be able to take advantage of close by public transportation. For example, when we moved to this place, we decided, okay, has to be close to the Dart, because we were no longer in the city centre to just walk up and down. Pretty much we walked to the office, we walked to the supermarket, everything was close enough in range. 15-20 minute walk, that was it to get wherever we wanted to go. Very rarely did we have to actually decide, hey, let me go on the bus. Walking was better because the time waiting for a bus, I could have already got to a location. Over here, that is the kind of the same. Within a, let's say, 10-15 minute radius, we do have the option of the Dart or a bus that carries us straight into town. And that's the thing, once again, into the city centre. That is easy for us to do because mostly for the city centre is where we need to go. The thing is that we also still work remotely. That was one of the big things we thought of when moving here, outside of the usual central city limits. Because of that, it allows us to not have to go and travel by public transportation every single day. So when a journey takes us, let's say, over an hour, which is, I know, understandably short to some, it is a thing that we don't do daily for our commute. So we can stand, that over 1 hour commute when it's not daily. If it had to be daily, like if we ever move from this place, not if we ever, when we move from this place, that would then really change of whether I think of if we could only rely on public transportation. Yeah, we've got a couple of friends and they've moved off to other places, and it's always a bit of a change in lifestyle. You say, for example, if you've got a child, yeah, that automatically is like, yeah, the one of the things we want to do, or if a pet, yeah, having a car to help facilitate that, makes sense. If you move to a new house or neighborhood, the public transportation may not be as good. A visitor or a friend is like, a year ago. Yeah, we should call them. Yeah, we'll organize something if you're watching this. Yeah, and their new place, you can get there, but the buses aren't as frequent and so on like that. And sometimes it's the decision, do I, walk this 30 minutes or do I sit here for 30 minutes and wait for the bus that I can't exactly tell whether I show up? Because of this hub and spoke model, it is sometimes a challenge. For example, Portmanot Beach, wonderful place with these hot summer temperatures that we had later on in the season and not earlier, because if you all remember, July was a lot of rain. Yeah, that would be a wonderful beach to go to. But the crazy thing is that even though we're relatively close to it, if we want to take public transportation and not walk there, have to go all the way back down to Dublin to then get something back up here. Sure, it makes sense if you're coming from Dublin, but I find that there's a lot less point-to-point sort of public transportation. So if you're in Dublin and traveling out, I think it makes sense. If you're in one of the more suburbs, yeah, I do see that we would have to probably change plans of trying to live a car-free life if something like that would happen. In conclusion, we have survived pretty well without needing a car, just using public transport, mostly because of how, especially in the past 3 years, we set up our life to not need to take it as much in an area that if we had to take it daily, it wouldn't be a total inconvenience. It would probably be, 40 minutes to an hour commute back and forth, not back and forth, 2 hours total. Let's say about 2 hours total of the day if we were working in the city centre. If we weren't working in the city centre, that may be a bit more of a challenge. I think I saw, say for example, the airport. We're fairly close to the airport if you take a car. But if I was supposed to take public transport, yeah, I may need to go further back down to then be able to go up to the airport there. If it was a metro system, well, let's not get into that. But because of that, if you come to Ireland or any place that you're living and you're trying to decide about public transport, it is completely understandable why anybody would need a car. I think that the idea of living in public transport, if you can afford a car, because let's be fair, when I was growing up, I didn't have a car because it wasn't one of the priorities of where to put some of the money towards. We could get around you know, just fine for what we wanted to do. Not as convenient, of course, but we also lived in a very, very good location that negated the need for a car most of the time. So if you're in a location that it negates the need for a car, you can get on public transportation just fine, great. But for most of us, I feel like we won't always be that lucky to be in a location where that may end up happening. Well, that's all for now, folks. Those are the experiences that we've had over here. So far, we've been, pleasantly surprised at how we're able to manage for these past 6 years now without any form of, private transportation. Is that going to change anytime soon? Probably not, unless we move from here. But hope you enjoyed. Please remember, like and subscribe. Yeah, we're gonna make a lot more videos like this. They're gonna pop up into channels like you're like, oh gosh, y'all didn't make videos for a while. Where are all these videos coming from? Months and months of work. I'm trying to get back into this. And don't worry, the wine will make an appearance soon. Yeah, don't worry. We've got there are some longer form videos that she'll join us on for. But for these short ones, I'm just trying to pop up these ones so you get to see at least one of our faces a lot more often. That's all for now. Bis später.